Good evening, tonight we are going to share with you two true scary stories. Please like our video and subscribe to our channel. The Crying Doll, it's the title story. My name is Evelyn, but most people call me Lynn. I'm 34, married to John, 39. We have a daughter, Sarah, who's 4 years old. I work at the town school as an English teacher and my husband works for social services. I have to tell you my story, before it's too late to share the truth. It all began a month ago. I was preparing dinner when John came home from work. And, as usual, he brought a gift for Sarah. A beautiful porcelain doll, with curly brown hair and a red dress with black stripes on it. I told Sarah to let it rest until we ate dinner. She did, grudgingly. Once the dinner finished, Sarah just rushed immediately to the doll. She hugged her and kissed her. And just for a second, I had this shiver crawl down my spine. As we went to bed, I told Sarah to be careful with the doll since it seems fragile. To what she answered, "Edith is already broken." I took a quick look at the doll, and indeed, there was a finger missing from one of her hand and a little crack on her skull. I thought it was a brand new doll. Weird. I was about to ask John about it, but he was already asleep when I came to our bedroom. I joined him, still thinking about the name Sarah chose for her doll. Edith. So outdated. How did she even thought of this name? I fell asleep quite quickly. And then, in the middle of the night, something woke me up. A faint sound. Like a cry. But so soft. I immediately think, Sarah. I got up and went to her room. Only to find her sleeping quietly. The sound didn't stop, however, I could still hear it. I scanned the room and my eyes stopped on the doll. She was on the floor. I picked her up and suddenly the crying stopped. I checked the doll to see if she had any sort of voice mechanism, but nothing. Her body was made of tissue, except for the head, arms and legs, which were porcelain. I looked at the crack on her skull and I watched in horror and disgust a worm coming out of it. I threw the doll on the floor, waking up Sarah doing so. "Mom. What are you doing?" she asked me with a sleepy voice. I was still catching my breath. "I'm sorry, hon, I just heard something, it's okay. Why did you throw Edith on the floor?" "I think she might be infested with worms, I'll get rid of it." At this moment, the crying started again. "No, Mom. Please, she won't like that. Honey. This thing is dangerous, no to mention disgusting," I said. She started crying and tried to reach for the doll, which I pushed away with my feet. I said, "No, Sarah, let me at least clean her. I promise I won't throw it out, okay?" She nodded. Now, back to sleep, I took the doll, carefully, and the crying stopped again. I wonder if Sarah could hear them. Am I going crazy? I tried to find the worm, but it seems to have disappeared. I looked at the crack, but it was clean. I could see inside the doll's head and nothing was inside. Just for safety, I put the doll in a plastic bag, and the crying resumed. But they were muffled. I was unable to find sleep after that, so I just laid down on the couch with the TV on. John woke me up the next morning. He had the bag with the doll in it in his hand. "Care to explain?" he asked me with a smile. I had to take a few seconds to remember everything from last night. "Oh, this," I said. "I saw a worm coming out of her head." His smile died on his face. He opened the bag and proceeded to examine the doll. "Where?" I pointed to the crack. "There's nothing there," he said. My eyes opened widely. I couldn't believe it. There was no crack on the doll's head. I took the little hand and the missing finger was here. I must have been dreaming. But Sarah too. "Edith is already broken," I whispered to myself. "What did you say?" John asked me. "Nothing," I replied. "You can give back the doll to Sarah, she'll be thrilled." At this moment Sarah appeared downstairs. "Where is Edith?" she asked, before even saying good morning. God, she must really love this doll. John turned to her. "Who's Edith?" The doll, I said, there you go sweetie, you can have here back. She smiled while hugging the doll. And again, I felt just for a second this weird shiver. What is that all about? My mom hates paranormal stuff, and it was because she swears up and down that her ex-husband lived in a haunted house. Even my siblings agree the place was haunted and were beyond happy when their dad moved. My favorite story is when my mom, her husband Lee, and their friend, we'll call him Joe, were hanging out in the living room of the house. This was way before me or my younger brother were born, so no one else was in the house except our dog. It was the late 90s, so technology wasn't like it was today. There weren't trillions of ghost stories to read online, and people faking stories just for popularity wasn't common. So when Joe told her he could not only see ghosts but show them to her, my mom believed him and begged for him to show her. My sister was sleeping upstairs, but my brother refused to go to bed, so they simply threw a white sheet over him to keep him distracted and away from things that could be scary. Joe pulled out his video camera, turned off the lights, and turned on his flash. They could see a small speck floating along the top of the wall. My mom got excited, but Lee wasn't impressed, calling it dust. But then the one speck became 2 specks, then 3, then a small line of them floating around the top of the TV. My mom said she felt cold and sick. And it only got worse when they started to move. She felt like throwing up but was too mesmerized to stop. The orbs went from one wall to the other, then slowly towards them. They were all getting excited, until my brother started to whine, and eventually start freaking out. The orbs were approaching him, slowly turning to go towards him instead of against the wall. That's when my mom had enough and turned the lights on. She scooped up my brother and calmed him down. Everyone was scared now. My mom said the only time she ever felt that scared before was when my siblings were in the hospital, sick with pneumonia. She eventually got my brother calmed down and took him upstairs to his bedroom. My mom turned around and saw a small figure standing in the hallway. My mom let out a scream, and so did the figure. Then it started weeping. My mom quickly realized it was my sister who had woken up because she heard the floor squeaking outside her bedroom. My mom picked her up and took her downstairs to get her some water before also putting her to sleep. But as they reached the last few steps, my sister asked my mom, "Who is she?" My mom turned around and saw no one. So she asked who my sister was talking about. She pointed to the banister at the top of the stairs. "There's a lady there. She's covered in paint. How is she hanging like that?" My mom fell asleep in my sister's room that night, not wanting to leave her alone. After that my siblings only saw more. And of the same lady too. My mom was telling me stories about the house and mentioned there being a lady in white. My sister said she remembered seeing her, and my brother interrupted to say, "No, I saw the lady in white. Don't take that spooky shit from me, as if it were a joke." But they claim they did see a lot of scary things in that house that made them believe without a doubt that ghosts and evil entities exist. And when they got older they would rather spend the night watching movies or listening to music than actually going to bed. I almost wish I were alive for those times. I haven't seen or heard anything close to as scary as what they've seen and heard. Thanks for listening to this story. Please don't forget to like our video and subscribe to our channel, it will help us a lot.